I am going to talk about the Pupil Progress product, and I'm going to try and do a bit of product placement. I am actually really passionate about leadership, so a little bit about my journey I always like to think of, if I'm sitting there listening to someone, it's an important question, and it's also something I don't think we ask ourselves enough, which is, why would I listen to you? You're talking. What's the reason why I would pay attention? Am I just going to pay attention because it's polite? Or is there actual value in what it is you've actually got to say? So a little bit, hopefully, for some buy-in, which is, I taught for 12 years. I taught in Bermondsey. I really cut my teeth in quite a challenging context. I know that London is not the most challenging context. It's challenging context everywhere. Coastal schools in the Midlands. Up north, there's severe deprivation, especially around Blackpool or Hartlepool, all those places. But I definitely did learn a huge amount in that 10-year period. I was an assistant principal in that school. And I hold my hand on my heart and say that actually there was parts of my leadership that was poor, because I was just full of gumption, really enthusiastic, wanted to be, an assistant principal yesterday, and I actually took on responsibilities way too quickly. And actually at one point I was actually rejected by my department because I'd learned from someone who was also really poor, who'd learned from someone else who was really poor, and so forth. It was only actually having that humbling experience where people were literally sitting down in my department saying, you're not doing a good job. Now, they were using other words, which you won't repeat, but it was raw. It was really raw, because you're going to learn all the theory, you're going to learn all of what the textbook says, right? And the realities are that you're going to have these difficult conversations, and let's train you to have a difficult conversation, and then you're going to go in and sit next to the person you've just had a difficult conversation with, because you aren't a CEO yet. So you can have those difficult conversations. You can go, wonderful, I read the textbook, I executed the difficult conversation, but I've had those difficult conversations, and you've got to go back in the office and no one else is there. And you're sitting next to the person you've just had quite an uncomfortable conversation with. You're like, oh Christ, I didn't think this through. Now you've got to apply actual practical thinking, right? So I just want to, the reason why I'm telling these stories, and forgive my ADHD brain, I do sometimes get distracted, but I promise Jeremy and Lindsay I will stick to time, because I've got a timer that reminds me, to get me back on focus. The reason why I'm saying that is because I've been in your seats. Now, I never became a vice principal, I never became a principal. I was on that journey. I did my leadership masters. I was really passionate about understanding why in my own journey it went so wrong and what can I actually do. It was actually only upon my masters that I realized just how little I knew. And I also realized that leadership is a lifelong journey. It's not this thing you can just hold up a certificate and go, it's done. It's lifelong. And I'm learning even more now. I've got this default title of CEO of Pupil Progress, which sounds really, grandiose. But the fact of the matter is yesterday I was still packing up your goodie bags and, doing that because we don't have enough people in the team for me to have an assistant that I'm sending running around doing those things. That's also part of being a school leader. So if you think at some point your PA is going to do all that, it's not coming. Never will that day, because the really outstanding head teachers that I've seen and know, and I've seen these around the active learning, and I've been over to some schools recently. Ironically, someone I used to teach has become a head teacher. The teachers that stop, and the head teachers that stop and start picking up rubbish and walk into the canteen and they say, excuse me, I just need to go and say hello to the cook, and I need to go and say hello. Like these things that you think are going to be beneath you or below you, or which I know you probably don't, they'll always be with you. I wanted to make sure, because I'm always scribbling on this when I'm listening, to try and make sure I'm feeding into the right message, which is this conversation is going to be full of contradiction. Full of contradiction. So we've had a great speaker about the importance of AI and how we're part of a system that's just teaching students how to be part of an algorithm. I'm just about to contradict all of that. Now, that's not to say that what Alex is saying is wrong. It's not to say what I'm saying is wrong. It's not to say what I'm saying is right and what Alex is saying is right. It's your job now as leaders, and I've been written here, it's critical thinking. Your job now as leaders is to actually distill this information, and it's your job to decide what is relevant for you in your context. It's not my job to say I'm right and Alex is wrong. It's not Lindsay's job. It's not Jeremy's job. It's your jobs to go, I know my context. That's information that's either useful or not. I need to distill that. And that word critical thinking is something that stuck with me throughout my whole entire journey after doing my masters, because I found myself even today, contexts where you're really experienced and what you did worked, you're really experienced and you're advising me and what you did worked, and both of the things that you're saying are completely opposite. And that's what you've got to navigate. So what I'm going to talk about today is quite, bold. It's something that I think is important, and I think is something that I'm open to challenge on, but you can challenge that in your heads because we don't need a massive argument about it in a public space. But it's that critical thinking. Is that useful? Is that something that I believe in? Is that something that I think is useful for our context? And that's soon to become your job. So what I actually want to talk to you about is the passion I have for helping young people moving in and forward in their careers and life based on a system that at the moment we can't control. So I actually agree with Alex about the fact that our actual context and the way that we need to educate needs to change rapidly. I completely agree with that. But I also now understand, because my daughter's just done her A-levels and she's just gone to university. She just about got into the university she wanted to go into because I caught some information earlier. You're going to hear about that story in a minute when I take you through the platform. It's absolutely critical that we understand there is a system in place that we can't ignore, and that is exams. Do I agree with them? No. Did I actually do well in my A-levels? Horrendously badly. Did I have a great time at university, having gone through clearing of my second choice university? Yes. Was that serendipity? The fact is, the education system did not serve me at A-level. I learned how to solve the problem at GCSE, but I didn't learn how to solve the problem at A-level because the information was far more complex. I was at the back of the room, falling asleep, not paying attention, and then fell off the cliff in the exams. That's what I'm passionate about now, is making sure that the information that teachers and students need is in their hands today to impact on the future that we can't control yet, because they can't go to university without the grades that they said they were going to get. They can't get in the college or sixth form that they want to go into without the grades that they say they want to get into yet. We need to enable that. The other thing I would say, and this is not to say that I'm an expert, it's just my opinion. There's an element of this where whether you like it or not, you in the room will be judged on performance. That's factual. So it's being sharply aware of what are the things and the key metrics that are going to say this school is a really great school. What we can't really hide from is results will be a major part of that conversation. That's just the reality. We can't sit here and go, no, that's nonsense. We know it's true. Because we know if the students are safe, they do feel secure, teaching and learning is good, that there is a feeling around the school that students are progressing, we should see their outcomes coming out in the wash. And the wash is, as we know, is the exams. So I want to make sure that you are aware of the systems that are available to keep your laser sharp focus on those exams, because those are things that we can't hide from. There's obviously product placement. I'm going to be talking about my software, right? Because I had those experiences. If you aren't interested in using our software, it's fine. What I'm talking about is the principles of being laser focused on what is happening in your classrooms, because that's where the impact's going to be. And if you want to take ideas from the platform and you think you can do it in a way that's, either lower cost or something that I can just insert there that's a better practice that we got, great, because then I'm actually fulfilling my passion, which is we're moving students forward. Okay? So I kind of wanted to just frame it really for the first 5 to 10 minutes before I do take you through the platform, but add some leadership kind of context to it as well. So these are things we're really driving. I've said it before, which is classroom impact. These are all things that you're aware of. Now, I think it's actually quite useful for those that are actually part of the Active Learning Trust as well. We have every single teacher across the whole entire school, across the whole entire UK, a lot of international schools as well, and we're now finding out primary schools. It's a very familiar view for those of you. Can you just raise your hand if you're an assistant principal or a vice principal? Great, so we've got vice principals, assistant principals. When we're looking at what's happening in that classroom, we want to go, I've got grades coming through. Every teacher is using an Excel or Google Sheet in order to try and pull together all of the data across all of the units, all of the exams, and also any A's or coursework requirements. What's the problem with that, Brett? I've seen some of my spreadsheets that, either maths use or drama use, and they look great. But there's some inaccuracies that are below that or beneath those that we need to be really aware of. One is not many people have that Excel skill, that Google Sheet skill, that confidence. So it might look nice, but on the surface, there will be some inaccuracies with unit weightings, with scaling factors, with grade boundaries. Some teachers are using whatever grade boundaries they feel because they're their own spreadsheets and not really any visual understanding of what grade boundaries they're using. And the biggest inaccuracy of it all is everyone is doing it differently. Now, the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because my daughter rang me close to tears. I've been given my predictions for my UCAS. They're a DDE. And where am I going to go, Dad? I've got no hope of going to the ones I want to go to. I've been trying to talk to my daughter's college. I was getting really poor communication. I said, come round to the apartment. I'll talk you through it. You're not at DDE, and I'll show you. And this is part of the problem, is that the teacher's telling my daughter that she's only ever going to be getting a DDE because they've sat one question and they've applied some grade boundary, and this is where you're working at. I'll reveal at some point in this presentation what she actually got and what university she ended up going to as a result of knowing where she was. The other part of this is systems. Systems. I can't actually emphasize this enough. If you are a leader of any organization, regardless of whether it's pupil progress, the takeaway from a leadership perspective is invest in a system that gives you very clear information. It worked when I was teaching. It worked as an assistant principal, and it works even better now running pupil progress. We've got around 35 staff that work in the team. We've got wider, consultants that we use. Without real-time information, it will cripple you. If there's a system that can give you a finger on any pulse, invest in it. And I said, this is not about pupil progress. I'm talking about any system that enables you to give you first-class information, because at some point, I'd like to discuss your role in decision-making. At the moment, teachers are doing their own thing in departments. Data point comes round. I'm going to take what assessments I'm using. I'm going to put it into my spreadsheet. I'm going to make some manual calculations, and I'm going to type it into my MIS. That's called double data entry. It's more workload. It's less efficient, and there's real problems with teachers moaning about the fact we used to have 6 data points and now we have only 3 because everyone's kicked up so much fuss. There's even a mandate about double data entry, and now schools are even trying to employ people to enter data. So we're doing this manual system for the data lead to then make sure it's all in the right format for us to then put it into an analytical tool. We know that this whole process, our data point process, takes 2 to 3 weeks. We know this takes 9 to 10 weeks throughout the year. For 25 years, this has been a problem. Sims came along, first software. Sims was first introduced when people were still using chalk and blackboards. And they went to every LEA and swallowed up and had like a 95% market share, and spent most of their time actually fighting lawsuits against monopolisation of the edtech market. That's a true story. This is 25 years. Lindsay, I heard speak at the Matchstrat Forum, and it was just fascinating listening to really simple words that just cut through. Are we, or are you, question, not an actual assumption or accusation, are you polishing current systems, or are you being revolutionary? And that's the challenge for you. And the really successful organizations will be revolutionary rather than trying to polish the existing. Because the more information you have, the clearer your picture, the more room that you have to say, well, what is the best way of doing that to be revolutionary rather than to continue to polish systems? Now, at the moment, what's happening is schools are just continually polishing this 25 to 30-year-old problem. Now, what we are doing is being the revolution, and we've created exam board specific trackers that will calculate a grade exactly as the exam board does. so that your teachers no longer have to use Excel or Google Sheets. So what we're doing is creating efficiencies, and we're creating better information for your classroom teachers and for your students. Everything is broken down in line with the exam board exactly. What you're seeing here is already set up, by the way. So it's nothing that is actually you've got to go and configure. This is already preset. When you set your school up, you just send them login details, they log in, and their course requirements are already pre-mapped, ready for them to start entering data. Everything can be applied at question level analysis. So everything is linked to key AOs and key topic areas. Again, contradiction, and your job to be critical thinkers is I know that we are teaching students for that algorithm. I know that it's not the best version of education. I know it's not. But I can't yet do anything about the fact that we have a ticking clock on how many lessons you have left before they sit their GCSEs this coming summer. Fact. So we have to do a bit of both. We have to keep them educated as a whole, but I have to keep this front and center because the algorithm needs to be learned to achieve the grades they need to move forward in our own success criteria, which we will hopefully as a government wake up to very soon, that we need to adapt and change. Qualifications in money, qualifications on leadership, qualifications on self-awareness, things that are going to be personal skills given how AI is growing so rapidly. But I'm passionate about this, I believe, for the right reasons. We want to be able to see and understand what we need to do in order to get the very best outcomes. Each tracker comes with a very clear summary section that tells me James Bond currently has a minimum target grade of a 7, is actually working at a grade 4, and is 3 grades below where James needs to be. But most importantly, I know to get that 7, James is 23 marks away. So now I have the granularity in actually being able to explain to James, okay, it's not great, but we've got a plan and we know where we are. And this is our job as leaders, is to be able to motivate, inspire, give the information that gives confidence, relieve stress. There's nothing more peaceful than a plan. And there's nothing more peaceful than a plan that makes sense to where we need to get to, because then we sleep at night when we know we've got a plan. This is the differentiator. And this is the important part. And this is where I bring back my daughter's grades. This is the individual student report. And this is what we're calling the execution tool. This will improve motivation for your students. Motivation is a key word, because without information and buy-in and ownership, you will not have students taking action. Motivation is the willingness to act. It's the willingness to go, that action actually benefits where I want to be. So I've got motivation to do it. How do we get motivation? Very easy words to use. They sound wonderful. Oh, everyone's motivated. How? Let me ask you, Brett, how? If I own the problem, my name, the data is personalized to me, my outcomes, these are areas that my class is not underperforming in, that I'm underperforming in. I've got ownership. It's mine. It's physically printed. I've got it in my parents' hands. My teacher's talking about the same information. I've then got buy-in, and the buy-in comes from, not only do I know, my teacher knows my weakest areas, and my teacher's talking to me about an intervention session that is targeting my gaps, my poor performance, or areas I want to improve on, is where you're going to take me. So I'm bought in. So with ownership and buy-in, I'm going to have more willingness to take action. And this is where the importance comes, and this is where the classroom impact comes. What I did, and what I see the schools using our systems the very best, is it becomes all-encompassing. Guys, open up your folders just while I get the board ready. Take a look at your grades. It should be printed in your folder. It's gone home to parents. Okay, we've had another major assessment, 6 weeks in our last one. Printed another one, put it on top of your old one. It becomes the language. It becomes all-encompassing. How am I going to get to where I want to get to? I've seen this work in Bermondsey, and the students are saying to me, where's my certificate? Print my certificate. We've just done a mock assessment, sir. I need my certificate. And I had to say, what certificate are you talking about? You know, with all the numbers on that tells me my grade. Oh, you mean the report? Yeah, where is that? They were asking me for it. They wanted it. This is the age that we've got to, is we need to give our students the information. We need to equip them. This report, when I actually showed my daughter about the closeness of grade boundaries in sociology and business, how the art portfolios work, when we talked through it for barely half an hour, she left my apartment the next morning in a completely different mindset. I'm only 17 marks away from getting a grade B. I'm only potentially 20 marks away from getting an A, and currently my prediction is low D. My daughter actually received ABB as a result of just a half an hour conversation, when her teachers, even though I'd spoken to them, were adamant, this is what we're looking at, Brett, DDE. It's frightening. And this is where I can talk about it so passionately, because with the students' information, we are talking about teachers working less hard, get it in their hands, let them go and access those tools, facilitate their energy, and we will then end up looking all wonderful. And I don't mind that, because we want to be successful, and we're going to have great smiles on our faces when we open those results and those students see how well they've done. I get that fulfillment too, because I've been there. It's a great feeling. I don't mind saying it's a selfish feeling. It's a lovely feeling. It's a great feeling for them. But when your class does well, there's nothing better. Just some logistics about systems. We do actually sync with all major softwares that you're running your schools or trusts with. So we sync with Sims, Arbor, Bromcom, whichever one you're using, because we are aware that we've got to work with your existing technology stack. And this is where I'm really encouraging that you look at what systems you're using and how quickly can you get hands on information. And we also are working on the ability to get the data into Power BI. So if you are, as a school, utilizing Power BI because it's more flexible than Sysref or Matrix, then you can actually start to connect pupil progress with that as well. What we're promoting here is a single point of entry, a single point of communication. So our Pupil Progress app will actually allow you to be able to push those reports out either per department or as a whole school, to again improve that ability to actually sit down with the students, to get the students' data in their hands, to get them motivated, for them to go and take action, and for them to be more present in your lessons too. Now, some key things that your teachers, we're actually going to be changing this language, this word analytics, because analysis sometimes detaches our teachers, right? Because, well, you're a vice principal or you're an assistant principal, analysis is your job, it's not mine. Mine's teaching and learning. You need the data for you to do your analysis. Well, actually, what we need is information. So what we've presented here is a dashboard that shows me that I've got X amount of students within each class working at whichever P8. And I've also then got the grade shifts between 9 to 5 and 9 to 4. But I've also got the ability to see which percentage of students are working 1 grade away, which percentage of students are working 2 or more grades away, who's on target, and most importantly, getting teachers really embedded with understanding the gaps for different learner groups. How are your middle attainers doing? How are your higher attainers doing? Is there some actual insight you can see before we come in to do our observations? That we've got a bit of a problem here with our higher attainers. We've still got 60% that are off target by either 1 grade or 2 or more. We're starting to really make that communication all encompassing, where everyone's looking on the same page. Not, here's my page, I'm just going to put it in this system, and then you're going to get on another page. Everyone's on the same page in real time. Now this is interesting actually, I'm going to go back one step. How would I use this? So Brett, it's great, it looks really pretty, looks like it's a useful tool, but your question to me is, okay great, how would I use this in practice? So I, as a middle leader, can see the data across the whole entire department, my whole entire cohort, and then I can then say, well great, that's quite overwhelming, what do I do with that? Well, I can start to see, with a filter, I want to see every student that is basically 1 grade away. They start to chunk this up, and they start to create a super focused view, and there they are, there's every student in my cohort that is 1 grade away. Clear action. Now, Active Learning have used this software and this tool to do exactly this for English and maths, and had real success by just focused approach to which students are however far away. And then I've got the ability to say, well, not only do I want to actually see those students, I want to be able to understand exactly which areas they're underperforming in and then take action. So let's actually sort that top column. And then what I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to be able to tag all those students that are actually one grade away but underperforming in a very specific area. And what you're about to see now is I'm now getting that group of students to become a really focused intervention group. And that focused intervention group is going to basically allow me to not have 30 students in a room and then we've ticked our intervention box. What we are actually doing is saying, I just need to see you 5 students for the next 3 weeks to work on this very specific area to get you those 20 marks that you need. And then you're going to be in a securer place than you were before. And if you carry on working as hard as what you did in your previous lessons, you won't have to come back past those 3 weeks because I'll be working with another group of students for 3 weeks. And this is the message that I'm driving, is just ensuring that whatever you're using as a school, whether it's pupil progress or whether it's your own internal systems that have been developed, maybe by Google Sheets or through Google Sheets or through Power BI, that we can get access to this to drive outcomes for you as a leader. Now, you can see at a whole school level that I can also filter key information. So I can see every student that is filtered by maths and not English, English and not maths. So I've got the ability across the whole entire school to be able to actually understand, well, who are my key students that are not just within a department, but where am I strategically across all of my subject areas. We've got tracking for every single subject, qualification, and exam board. We built some 4,000 trackers and we build bespoke solutions for both Key Stage 3 and are currently working with trusts right now to support Key Stage 1 and 2 as a result of the success of tracking 3, 4 and 5. Now, if you are implementing any system, you need to make sure there's the right level of support. A bit of a plug for Pupil Progress is that you will get a dedicated account manager, you get a dedicated onboarding lead, you get 24-hour support, and at any point you can schedule a call. Okay? Now, this is something that I'd like you to also consider, and I've made some notes here. I spoke to Lindsay on a bit of a live session. The word turbulence, and this is my last bit of closing information for you as leaders. The safest mode of travel is flying a plane. We know it. It's clearly documented. There's least amount of accidents versus the number of people that we fly on a daily basis. But no single plane ever takes off and lands without experiencing some form of turbulence. So if you are going to actually invest the time into implementing systems, go in knowing with the confidence that it's not going to be easy, but I'm confident in us pushing through that turbulence because I know where we're trying to get to. And the schools that do that and the organisations that do that understand what turbulence is and what you need to experience will have the best outcomes and have the most success. I really appreciate your time. If I'm allowed to, I'll carry on waffling on for a long, long time. And I've probably gone over maybe a minute or so, but thank you very much. And I really wish all you guys the best as well. Well done for coming and stepping into these spaces as well, because the best leaders are actually the ones that are curious enough to come and actually see how can I be better. So the fact you've even taken this step, I really applaud it. Thank you.